Now it is time for conversation with featured guest, Dr. Sushant Sahastrabuddhe. Dr. Sushant Sahastrabuddhe, a native from Maharashtra, India, is the Associate Director General at the International Vaccine Institute, Seoul. Dr. Sushant is a medical graduate from India with a master's degree in public health from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health in Baltimore, Maryland, USA, and master's in business administration from Indiana University. He is also associated with Yonsei University, Korea, as research professor and Université Claude Bernard, France, as research fellow. Dr. Sushant is a business strategist and public health partnership facilitator, vaccine enthusiast with more than 18 years of experience in multiple countries and diverse projects. For his contribution to the joint efforts with Korean companies and international partners to develop vaccines against COVID-19 and other diseases, Dr. Sushant was also awarded Honorary Citizenship of Seoul. The Seoul Metropolitan Government presented 9 individuals living in Seoul from 8 countries, including Dr. Sahastrabuddhe, with honorary citizenship. Dr. Sushant's work was highlighted in the Netflix show Welcome First Time in Korea, wherein the contributions of the expat community are highlighted. I request the Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre, Dr. Sonu Trivedi, and Dr. Sushant Sahastrabuddhe to please come on the stage.
Annyeong Hasanika. So we now move from stardom to somebody who has been involved in doing research and saving lives in the real life. So welcome Sushantji to this very interesting conversation, a samvad that we have every month with a prominent Indian community members who has been contributing towards in their respective field. And this is our 3rd series, and this is a special series that we have started under Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the celebration of independence that we are having in this 75th anniversary of India as an independent nation. So welcome once again. And we've seen Ms. Neelam has already introduced Dr. Sushant to our viewers and audience who are present here live. So let us begin the samvad, Dr. Sushant. Well, as Ms. Neelam has just introduced, we see from your bio that you've spent almost a decade in Korea. So can you share your experience with our viewers today, your journey so far in summary, if you can just describe?
Sure. So first of all, can I take some time to thank you, Sonuji, and thank you, Ambassador Madam, for inviting me on this occasion. It's amazing to hear. Anupam was before me, and then it was a very inspiring story, right? And the message that you put at the end of your talk per se was quite inspiring, and many of us can connect with that story. Many of us feel that we come from this background where we have to prove ourselves, not only to yourself but also to the community and to the people around you. And I feel quite privileged to follow you and then discuss about this part. To going back to your question, so I originally come from Pune in Maharashtra, right? And actually I'm not from Pune. My native is a Tehsil, which is around 180 kilometers away from Pune. It's a Tehsil, a small town, and I grew up there until my 10th. And after 10th, since I was one of the top students in the exam, I basically went to another city which is called Latur. If people know from Maharashtra, Latur is known for taking people, and then this was one of the, either you go to Pune if you are from Western Maharashtra, or you go to Latur, right? So I chose to go to Latur. From there I got admission in BJ Medical College, which is one of the top 10 medical colleges in India now. And I did my MBBS there. From quite early on, I was interested in the medical care, but more from public health point of view. So I started, initially I was also interested in the IAS. So I did go to Delhi. I completed the whole process of Rajendra Nagar, Jia Sarai, all the late nights. I could not crack the mains. I appeared for mains twice and I could not really crack the exam. So I decided quite early on that if I cannot do that, I will go back to research. So I started my journey in 2005 with clinical trials of various drugs. And then I quickly shifted to HIV vaccines, because at that time HIV was quite prominent. India was contributing the most cases in the world as per capita. So HIV was a big problem in India. So I started working with Indian Council of Medical Research, which is the apex medical research body in India. And I was hired by International AIDS Vaccine Initiative. So I did all these HIV vaccine clinical trials in India for 4 years. I got a scholarship because, scholarship is important. As Anupam mentioned, you have to prove to people that you are worthy of that, right? So I did get the scholarship. I went to Hopkins and I completed my Masters of Public Health, which is like the community medicine degree from Hopkins. And I worked there for a couple of years after that with the professors on HIV, on tuberculosis. And then I got this offer from Korea to join International Vaccine Institute. Since quite early on, I was quite interested in vaccines per se. And now everybody, I'm quite happy that at least from this pandemic, the silver lining is the importance of vaccines is understood. People understand what people like me do. And there are a lot of researchers who are spending quite a bit of time on vaccine research. And then when I got this offer, IVI being the only intergovernmental not-for-profit vaccine research and development organization, it's quite unique. It's probably the only one in the world. So I was quite happy to come here. When I came here, I certainly like Korea. Korea as a country, as Anupam mentioned, people generally have the notion of North and South conflict, the way people perceive India-Pakistan conflict. So there was a component of, okay, you are going in a conflict zone, right? And even for myself, I was not really aware how technologically advanced South Korea is. So I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with the climate, with the weather here and everything. Food also, although there were some initial setbacks for the food as Anupam mentioned. But I really love the way we are working here at IVI, our projects globally, and Korea as a host country. Sorry, that was a long answer to the question, but.
Well, it's quite interesting to know about your journey, how you came to Korea. But tell us more about living in Korea. How has it surprised you? What are the challenges of living in Korea as a foreigner? If some tips you would like to give to our viewers or somebody who's planning to come to Korea for the first time.
I see a lot of positives in Korea, right? So certainly, many people. I was living in Baltimore, and if people have been to Baltimore, you will understand the environment that we are living in. You are not supposed to go out of the university after 7 p.m., after sunset, because it's so very, if you see for a city of one of the GOOs here, one of the districts here, Baltimore is that big in terms of population. There are more than 500 homicides per year. So it's a very violent city. From my apartment, when I was in Baltimore, we heard 2 times gunshots near the apartment. So from there to come to Korea, to come to Seoul, where security is not a problem at all, and you feel quite comfortable even if you are walking alone as a man or a woman or a girl at 2 a.m. in the night. It's safe. So that part certainly is a big advantage, I will say. I love the weather here. I like the distinct 4 seasons. Although I was quite sad when there was a report in Korea Times recently when they mentioned that by 2056, Korea might have only 2 seasons. It will be winter and summer because of the climate change. And I think many of us we see, right? I think when Anupam, you came in 2010, when I came in 2010 also, there were 4 distinct seasons and we could really enjoy the falls and the springs and the cherry blossoms and winter and summer. But now it's mixed. And even this year, we saw that the fall was pretty short. It suddenly became winter. And as I think, so the weather, the climate, certainly people, as again, I'm referring a lot to Anupam because he said a lot of things that I wanted to say, but you talk to people and generally you get a very, very positive and people are generally welcoming. There are always some section of the community, some section of the nation which is not as welcoming, but overall, if you look at the brighter side, I think most of the people, they are quite welcoming, they are quite accommodative and they are eager to help. So that part certainly helped me. I like to hike. So having all these mountains nearby, you can just, maybe you're in the middle of the city, even in my office, when I come out from lunch and I can just go for hiking behind my office building and it's quite nice. It's pleasant. People are quite welcoming. So I think those parts I like. In terms of challenges, yes, language can be an advantage or a challenge, right? So for me, it's a challenge because I was lazy. I did not learn the language. Anupam, probably many of our community members, they have learned the language. With language, you can certainly get the experience of the culture firsthand. For now, I had to depend a lot on subtitles, on somebody who is interpreting the things for me. And I cannot communicate with common people, which is advantage. And probably I'm missing on that. So if you are coming to Korea and if you want to settle here for certain years, then yes, language becomes an important part. Many of us, we prefer either vegetarian, vegan, or some sort of food. So yes, food becomes a challenge in this country, but Now there are many options open. People who came here 20 years before, 10 years before, they face a lot of challenges. But now I think there are a lot of options where we can go, and people do speak English. People do understand the concept of vegetarianism or vegan. So I think this is a good change.
Well, we've heard from Mr. Anupam and Dr. Sushant, and I'm sure if we ask the same questions, everybody would give the same answer, same response to how we've been staying and how we love and what are the various challenges and the different aspects of Korea. So I am sure the same answers would be given by all. So now carrying forward the conversation, we've heard that you're staying here with your family. So does your family equally enjoy staying in Korea?
I will say yes. So, for my wife, she's also an MD who is doing the clinical research. She's working as an independent consultant now. So there were some moments where, since during the childbirth, specifically during pregnancy, since there was no family structure and our parents, it was not easy for them to be here for a longer period of time. So we suffered a bit during the pregnancy and childbirth. But besides that part, I think my family also loves being in Korea. The thing is, with my kids, both of them are born in Pune. So we went for the last trimester. My wife went to Pune, and then after delivery, after 4 months, both the kids are back in Korea. So for them, they are growing up in Korea. They understand very well that they are from India, they're Indians, but for them, the living world is about Korea, right? So they actually are quite accustomed to being in Korea. And whenever we talk about in the family to move to other country, back to India or somewhere else, they are a bit hesitant. So I think they also enjoy being here.
Well, that's really nice to know, because unless you are comfortable with your family, it's a double challenge, in fact, in living in a foreign country. But good to know that you're comfortable and your family is also comfortable here. So the other question that comes to, I think it must be there in everyone's mind, is you've spent almost 2 decades as a facilitator in public health sector. So what makes you passionate about this career and makes you stay in this career year after year?
If you look in terms of public health, right? So there are certain investments that governments has to do. Health becomes a priority, and we were having this lunch with Ambassador Madam and Dr. Jerome Kim, my Director General. When Jerome mentioned that for US, 16% of the total budget, annual budget, is on healthcare because of the healthcare structure there and because of the fees. If you look at India, it started from 1.2%. Now it's inching closer to 3% per annum. So healthcare is neglected because of different priorities in terms of the developing country, developed country, and also for the countries who are in the transition, right? So healthcare is important, and for me, when we develop these vaccines are the most cost-effective tools that you can use for prevention of various diseases, right? So there have been multiple studies, but if you invest $1 from the government side in development of vaccine, depending on the disease, you get up to $28 in return. So even for finance people, I mean, it's not only about ethical point, it's not only about the health point, but also in terms of your investment for the country. And I think recently COVID has really made this awareness, it was quite clear what can be the impact of an outbreak or a pandemic on the economy. People are paying attention to COVID, not only because of the lives lost, which is the sad part, but also because of the impact on economy. People who are in supply chain, people who are in restaurant business, people who are in movie business, entertainment business, everybody has suffered because of this one virus. And people understand the value of preventing those diseases, those outbreaks, and vaccines can be the one of the best public health intervention tools for that. So for me, I think from quite early on, when I was taking up this challenge of developing vaccines against HIV, and we have not been able to develop the successful vaccines against HIV, there was one vaccine with 36% efficacy. I think everybody now understand what vaccine efficacy is, and all these terms about phases of clinical trials, which has been a great, effect from the COVID pandemic. People have researched about this. So I feel quite happy about that. We have developed multiple vaccines, which are being used in multiple countries in the world for prevention of typhoid fever, for prevention of cholera. Now we are working on chikungunya, hepatitis B, pneumococcal disease, as well as multiple corona vaccines. So those points actually make me quite happy and, let's say, satisfied about the job.
Well, it must be really fulfilling to have contributed in saving lives. In fact, I'm sure all would agree also to this. You've also talked about the global pandemic that we are all in. So, how do you think the work culture has changed in the post-COVID world, and how did you personally adapt yourself in it?
It's quite interesting, right? So many of you who are in business and who are in academia and who understand the management and how the businesses should work. There was a lot of discussion starting from early 2009, 2010 about the work-life balance, about whether the current structure of working from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, was adequate enough, right? So there were some European countries which started discussing about 4-day work week. We started talking about making the work-life balance quite equal in that way. And in the host country that we are in Korea, government has to intervene to make sure that people don't overwork. Same goes for Japan, right? So all these things were happening on the sideline, and many people thought that, and talking about us essentially, we are a small organization, 200 people, but we have programs that are working or going on in more than 36 countries now. So that means we have to travel a lot. We have to go to these countries. We have to train the people, because most of the countries that we target to work in, they are either developing countries or they don't have the infrastructure or the skilled manpower to conduct the research. So we have to be stationed there. And as I was talking with some of you, from 2010 to 2019, I have been traveling almost 7 to 8 months in a year. So I did not spend a lot of time in Korea. And that has been my best excuse not to learn the language, which is not true. I think I was a bit lazy. But from 2019 and 2020, what really changed it, I haven't traveled out of Korea since early 2020. Many of my colleagues, we haven't. And we are successfully managing to work with new countries, with new collaborators, with people whom we never met, and we are able to conduct the study. So I think there is realization that travel or going there or stationed in some country is not that important. A lot of things can be done remotely. We have this hybrid culture where people can come into office. We also encourage people to work from home. So working from home, remote working, all these concepts which are being discussed, and many people thought this was possible. Many people thought this was not possible, but COVID really accelerated all those developments. And now I think almost everybody can work anywhere on any project, unless you are in the hardcore manufacturing or somewhere where physical presence is required. So I think COVID has really changed the way we work, and it's going to be here for good, essentially, because people like the comfort of working from home or working remotely. There are a lot more flexibilities. Especially this has benefited women, because there was a lot of requirement even for my wife. Our jobs required a lot of travel because we have to go to the site. And then since my kids were young, my wife decided not to pursue that career. But now with the remote working, she can work. She has clients now in North America, South America, and she's working with them. So this is a great benefit for everybody.
I'm sure now work from home and the digital world would be the new normal. And we are all, since last 2 years, we are all accustomed to it. So, Dr. Sushant, we've heard a lot about your professional life. So, coming to your personal life, could you share with our viewers some of your personal interests and hobbies? You've just spoken about hiking. So, do you get time from your clinical trials and research to pursue your hobbies?
I think somebody has said that being busy is state of mind. So if you are interested in something, you will make sure that there is time for that, right? So I don't want to take the excuse of being too busy not to pursue my hobby or interest. But certainly, there are some days where you want more time so that you can give to your family or your friends, you can connect with your interest or your hobbies. And there are some days where you are okay with that, right? So I think overall, there has been a nice balance between my traveling, my staying here with the family, meeting with the friends, and pursuing some of those hobbies. So yes, I do like reading quite a lot, although with Netflix, and Anupam has to be blamed for that, since 2019, 2020, I'm spending a bit more time than I like on watching these OTT, various shows, various movies, and there is amazing content there. So I think that's a good point, but that has affected the reading a bit more. I like cycling, I like walking, I like hiking. So those things I managed to do. And again, as I mentioned, one of the advantage of working remotely has been that many of the calls that we are having late in the night, I can just walk and I can put my headphones and I can attend those meetings or calls when I'm walking. So I can pursue both the things. So yes, you can always manage to get the time, and you can do this one.
That's quite interesting. From your past experience, would you like to share one episode? You've said several. You've shared just several experiences, but we just would like to hear one episode which changed your life forever.
There are many, but since recently, so last year in May, I was infected with COVID. I was probably one of the first from my institute, and maybe Indians who are living in Korea. I was one of the first Indians. So that was an experience which really changed my perspective. I will not say the life, but certainly the perspective, and I really appreciated what I was doing, and I that really made my resolve to work in this field a bit stronger, right? So in that part, initially this was 2021 May. So at that time, government was not still doing this home treatment part. So if you're diagnosed with COVID, they will take you to the isolation facility. So they took me to the isolation facility, and then, it's like a prison, because you're in a room, there might be TV, there might not be TV. And then you are not allowed to go outside. The food comes and there is announcement in Korean. And then typically like prison, there is this buzzer which goes off, so that you can open the door of your room only at that time, take the food in, eat that, and within half an hour, another buzzer, you have to put it outside, right? So that part, and you are alone, you are thinking a lot, you are contemplating, you are probably in pain, which I was. I was having high fever, sore throat, and there was no taste, there was no smell. So since I was not getting any taste in the room, they actually provided the spicy ramen, right? The black spicy ramen. So I cooked that. With the stove and everything there, but I could not smell anything. And when I ate it, it was plain water. I don't feel temperature, I don't feel spicy. And then, you fear for multiple things, right? And not only your life, but I have parents who are old, who are dependent on me, and I have the family right here. So that really made me think a lot about that. And then from day 5 onwards, my condition worsened a bit. So I was shifted to the hospital nearby. I was in the COVID ward. And since in the COVID ward, at that time, Korea was not ready, so we have to share the room. So I was sharing room with, I think there was another American gentleman, there was a couple of Korean Ojushis actually, and one of the person, he was probably 85, Korean, and then he was in pain, right? I was in pain, obviously, but my symptoms went down from day 6 onwards, so I was okay, but he was in pain. And the only thing he would do is, after his breakfast, after his meal, he will call his family and he would cry. And he was nice enough to really not let us know, but you can hear. I mean, he was next to the bed, right? So for 3 days, that was his routine. He would just cry, because I think what happened is he got infected first, and because of him, his wife and probably other children in the family, they were infected. So one, he was in pain, but second, he was feeling very guilty that because of him, the other people got infected. So at that point, when you are having this kind of, you are in pain, this surrounding is a bit weird, everybody coming to you is in PPE, you don't see any human interaction, no face, and then with the food also a problem. That really made me think about a lot of things, and that had a very, very big impact on me, I would say. It's a bit sad part of the event, but yeah.
Yeah, really a sad part. Must have been a challenging experience for you, and really difficult to cope up with it. Living in isolation, in fact, if you're sick, you generally feel like staying with your family members, but certainly it must have been a really challenging experience for you. So, Dr. Sushant, if you can share with us one person in your life who you consider as somebody who has inspired you or changed your life. Or your ideal, maybe in your family or outside your family.
Multiple people. I mean, we have a saying that, when we raise a child, it's not the parents, it's not one person, it's the community which raised the child. And same goes for all of us, right? I mean, some of us get to share the experiences, but I'm sure that everybody feels the same way, that there have been multiple personalities, starting from my parents, going to my teachers, to the friends. But I think from last, 10, 12 years or most probably 15 years, my wife has been with me for longest time, and she really understands. She has been one person who has supported, who has sacrificed. She was having the same career as me, and then during the pregnancy, the first pregnancy, and the rearing of my first child, she actually decided not to continue with her career. She has taken that decision. Because of that, I could do what I was able to do, right? And then now she is back to the workforce, and she has been supporting me quite a bit on that. So I will say yes. I mean, Yogita, my wife, she has played a big role in this. But there are other many individuals who have made lasting impact on me or my career. Yes.
That's again quite interesting. Ms. Yogita is not here, but thank you, Ms. Yogita, for being one of the main motives and person behind Dr. Sushant's success, and his rightly acknowledged. I'm sure you might be like generally. We don't have any option when.
But this is not me being politically correct. This is me being me. So.
Anyways, that was on a lighter note. We understand that you've been featured in a Netflix show, Welcome First Time in Korea, wherein contribution of expat communities are highlighted. Could you share your experience from real life to real life in Korea?
We were just talking about this on the third floor with Anupam also was there. So I was telling him that, I'm not an actor. I mean, I did some theater when I was in the medical school, but that's it. And that's my exposure to this kind of field, right? So when this Netflix series came and communication has been a problem, right? They had somebody who speaks English. From our communication team, there was one person who was with me, but everybody else, the crew of 38 cameramen and everything is, it's different, right? Because they will put camera everywhere and they will try to, record everything that you're doing. So initially the plan was they will come to my house and from there they will follow me in car and they will get all this daily routine per se, right? But then they changed the plan. They said, okay, you come to IVI and then we'll get a cycle for you. This was January of 2021, -16 outside. They said, you have to come by cycle. I'm like, I'm wearing a suit. You want to get a cycle on me, and then how should I come there? But I said, okay, if this is requirement for the show, I will do it, right? So I think the better sense prevailed in the team. They said, okay, no cycle, can you just walk? So they took us to the SNU main gate, and then they set up all these cameras there, right? And then there was some instruction, and then after the instruction, they're like, go. And then they have this something in my ear, the earpiece, and then they'll say, can you talk? I said, but talk to whom? They said, can you talk to yourself? Like, how is your day going to be? Okay, what are the meetings planned? And I'm like, I mean, this is not normally what we do, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to talk to myself. And it's like very alien feeling. You talk to yourself, but probably in your head. But you don't talk, okay, I have this important meeting with my colleague. So, that colleague has been, you don't do that part. This is weird, right? So real life is real, and obviously real life, but I do understand because that production team, they knows what appeals and how it look like, because if they introduce somebody else who is going to talk about my schedule for the day, it's also weird, right? So for the audience to understand what I'm going through, what the day is, so they are asking me to speak about it. But it was a very uncomfortable situation for me to understand, and they are asking me to do all those things, going to the lab. I'm not a lab scientist, right? But they actually, since I'm a medical doctor, I deal with human subjects or human participants, human clinical research, but that's not attractive or sexy enough. So they are like, okay, can you put the coat and can you go to the lab? So first time in my life, I'm going to the lab, I'm doing something which is not what I do generally. and they're like, can you do this part? Can you explain? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So there were multiple occasions where I felt, this is not real, but in the end, the message was perceived, right? Because at that time, that was the time when Korean government started the vaccination, and there were a bit of resistance. There were some people who were kind of objecting to that. So I think having that and having a lot of other information pieces from Korean government kind of got the message that vaccination is important. Vaccines can save lives. I think the purpose was solved. But for me, it was a tough one day. But one person I would really acknowledge is Lucky Abhishek. He is from Indian community. He's also Indian television celebrity, and then he comforted me. He was with me the whole time, and he was really reassuring me, that be yourself, just say what you want to say, don't succumb to the pressure, right? I mean, I understand from the production team side that they want to do certain ways, because we have this notion that Indians are good in maths, and I probably was one of those Indians until 10th standard. But after I chose medicine or biology, we had mutual divorce, mathematics and me, and I did not really do mathematics well, right? So in the shooting, there are two components. One, they come to your workplace, they shoot all these things, and then after editing and everything, they call you to their studio, right? And there are Korean foreign celebrities, but all of them speak Korean. And then I was sitting with that, and they will chat, and some of them will ask some questions to me in English, and then one of the panelists, I will say, there was some discussion going on, and she suddenly turned to me. She's like, okay, what is 12 into 7? Okay, what is 21 into 23? Where is this guy? I don't even know. Why are you asking me suddenly, right? And then I probably gave the answer. I think they were okay, but I don't know. They did not show that on the television. But this is the typecasting, which is important. They really believe that Indians are good in maths. Most of Indians are, but some of the Indians are not. But so Lucky was really one person who supported and who said, okay, you should be yourself. So that was good.
That must have been a good experience for you. We see Anupam laughing. He must be resonating, but he's a professional actor trained in this field for over a decade now, and we see Dr. Sushant kept in that situation. We all get into those experiences, and it's a learning experience for all of us. Moving to the next question, which I'm sure we all have our own preferences, but any three important places, since you've stayed here in Korea for a decade, any three important places and three signature dishes you would like to recommend to Indians or any other foreigner who is visiting Korea?
Interesting. So, I think...
Are you a vegetarian?
So, yeah, I'm a vegetarian, yes.
So, three signature dishes for a vegetarian.
Exactly, that's a problem, right? Yeah.
Challenging
I think, we have to go with the traditional, but the bibimbap is there, the pajan, the, what do you call that? The pancakes, Korean pancakes. And if you ask them, they will remove the seafood, and yeah, those are quite nice. And there are a couple other dishes, but I think for places, I will say, we generally go to the touristy places. What I like about Korea is good in branding. They certainly make sure that the touristy places are quite nice. But for me, the best part has been that with my kids, generally on Sunday, I take them out, and then we go to places without any GPS, without any target. And we land up in certain places where we find a nice reservoir, or maybe a nice stream, or some nice cafe, some nice shopping area. And there are just so many places studied in and around Seoul or all over Korea, right? But if you have to really, you have to connect the historical importance of the places. So I will say, yes, Jeju is quite nice. So Jeju is important in terms of the places, not only from the natural beauty, but also from geography. If you're interested in how the volcano-based islands, igneous rocks are formed, and you see all these rock structures, that's quite interesting. So Jeju has a lot of things for everybody. Certainly Busan is nice, but I feel that, the hills around Seoul, they're just amazing. You go anywhere in the morning or for sunset, and you will not be disappointed.
Any unique cultural insight you would like to share with our viewers today? Unique cultural insight about Korea?
I see a lot of cultural similarity because, Korea has a very interesting notion that it's a developed nation, but, it's Asian developed nation. So it has the mindset, which is also about Western countries, but people who are also have this very high value in the or Asian values, which is about respect to the elderly, which is about caring for the countries, which is about, the bad part of that is the hierarchical system and everything. But I think there are a lot of cultural commonalities between India and Korea. And I think that's, we neglect that a bit more than what it should be. And I feel more connected with the way Koreans, also Japanese, also Chinese, and many other Southeast Asian countries, they are similar to India. So that one is quite unique part to me, living in Korea.
Well, just to carry forward whatever you spoken about the similarities. In fact, when you look at the food, there are so many similarities, especially the gamjachon that you have and the aloo tikki that you have in India, and even the games, some of the traditional games, like if you talk to a local like a senior citizen in Korea, they'll tell you about the traditional games like gulli danda and stones with 5 stones that we used to play. So those are some of the common games that we have in Korea as well as India. So and some of the festival, in fact, you find so many similarities. We have the harvest festival, and also I'm sure like people who are coming would be able to like relate to it. And we all know that Korean government is focusing on multiculturalism, and we have people from different parts of the world coming and settling here. So you've been working at IVI, so working abroad in an international firm, how do you cope up with the multicultural organizational needs?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, right? So IVI, we are small. We are around 200 people organization. Most of them are based here, but we have nationalities, or almost 31 nationalities. So it's quite multicultural in that way. But what I feel is, I think many of us Indians in general are quite good in adopting outside. We have been. That's why there are so many people in the very high positions globally. In the Indian CEOs, I think we have patience. We certainly are quite patient, understanding how the country or the people really work from different countries. Second, as also Anupam, you mentioned, is about being curious, right? Generally, if you're curious about what that person is saying and why that person is saying what he's saying, right? So once you understand that part, you have more insight about that particular person, and you will not judge people based on what you are hearing. You probably will think more about that, right? And having basic respect for each other, right? And that tolerance is very important. And in the end, having empathy about people, because in the end we are all, for me, when I look at people in my organization, we all are here with some motive, right? Many of us can go probably to the big pharma or big companies in the corporate sector and probably better packages, and then be better off in financially. But people decide to choose, or people choose to be in this kind of organization for a motivation which is beyond the money, right? So once we understand those points, once we understand what that person is doing and where he is or she is coming from, I think it's quite easy. It's not that difficult to adopt to the multicultural or different kind of people. Yes.
Yeah. If in future you plan to move over from Korea, what is it that you're going to miss the most?
The weather and the hills. That's for sure. Yeah. I like the hills around Seoul. So yeah, that's something I'll certainly miss.
And my last question, in fact, we've had an interesting discussion, but since you've spent almost 2 decades in public health sector, what alternate career would you choose if given a choice 20 years back from now? You've spoken about your UPSC attempts, but any other career you would have thought about?
I don't know. If I have talent like Anupam, I probably will choose the show business, but I don't know whether I have that, right? So, but I mean, on a serious note, I don't think I will change anything in the career, because I'm quite happy where I am right now. I certainly see the value of the work that we are doing at IVI. Before that, when I was working with Hopkins, so I think this is something which is quite satisfying. It's a job that now people understand the value of this, but I'm fully convinced about what we do and what is the importance of that. So yeah, probably I will not change much about how things have been, unless I have that acting talent.
Well, friends, on that note, it's the time to wrap up. It's been almost around more than 30 minutes that we've been having this conversation with Dr. Sushant. We've heard about his positives, his negatives, his high points and low points in his lives, opportunities and challenges. And I'm sure there's a lot to learn from his inspiring journey. We wish you good luck, Dr. Sushant, and a successful career ahead. Thank you.